Are going
fun.
well.
Okay.
All right, I
Broadcast is
will welcome
live.
everyone first. Hello, world. Welcome to the Festival of Storytellers, the first of its kind in all the virtual book fairs you'll be in. It's a fantastic moment. It's our Author of the Hour segment, and I'm joined by one of our wonderful authors and our panelists. And I just like to say first, congratulations to ReadersMagnet and having this festival gathering all of the authors globally, sharing to everyone their stories and the stories behind it. And welcome. I would like to also introduce myself. My name is Robert. I'm with ReadersMagnet. I take care of training and quality. And as you can all see, I'm fairly excited with a sense of anticipation. We've been all looking forward to this. I will be the moderator for this session. And I will be introducing first our panelist, James Dodge, who is also from ReadersMagnet, who's head of operations, and he's also very excited. But before anything else, I'd like to talk about the book that we'll be featuring and the author. The title of the book is Spirit Dancer, The Blade of Barisi. And I think before I introduce the author, I'm just going to say, I think my words will be underrated because this book, I think, goes along the same lines and will be as epic as the Odyssey, the Iliad. And I think by far, since Tolkien wrote The Lord of the Rings, this is one of the most interesting that you will find. And so without further ado, I will introduce you to the master storyteller, who's an artist as well, and a thespian, very wonderful person, Luthie West. Luthie, would you want to say hi to the folks all around the world before we begin?
Yes. Well, thank you for that fantastic introduction. Every time somebody describes me, whether it's introduction or what, I had a one sheet put up, the things they say about me, I look and I say, who is that? Am I that great? And they say, yeah, you're like that. You really are. That's really you. So, my head gets big. Fortunately, it is not a visual thing, so nobody is going to get scared. I would like to thank Readers Magnet too for giving us all this opportunity. And more importantly, I love my readers. Hello, all of you. Any of you that are with me, I have to thank you because this has been the first day. Whatever glitches and junk you're going to run into would be heaviest here and now. And hopefully you didn't run into too much of that. But I tell you, I really appreciate your presence. I really do. And without readers, we authors wouldn't, what would I be doing? I'd be talking to myself. And don't fault me if I actually talk to myself, but I mean, when you write a book, you don't want to write a book to yourself, right? That's ridiculous. So you play a very big part in what our lives are all about. So I'm here for you.
That's a very sweet introduction, Luthie. Dodge, I will give you some time to say something. I know you're very interested as well. You on the stage now.
Thank you so much, Rob. Hey, Luthie. Hi, everybody who's with us today. I know we're going worldwide. Everybody's watching us. And I'm so privileged to be part as a panelist of this session with Luthie because even like the first 30 minutes we've been together, it seems like we guys know each other for that long already. Luthie has been so awesome. I'm so excited with your book. I have been telling you, it reminds me of Lord of the Rings, Avatar combined all together, and we're going to be discovering a lot of stuff about your book. The entire hour we're going to be together. And as part of the operations for ReadersMagnet, it always feels so rewarding and heartwarming to knowing that one of our clients, and now not just one, but many of our clients have been doing this directly to their buyers, to their readers, to the world. And it's about time. Despite of the crisis that we're in right now, nothing's going to stop us. Sky's the limit. Imagination is your limit.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to be part of this one. So we can't wait to be talking about whatever it is that we can talk about the Spirit Dancer, the Blade of Barisi, and definitely you're going to teach us some more lexicons later. Like you promised, you're going to let us know. Take it away.
Absolutely, absolutely. Before anything else, I just like to say for all the viewers out there, please visit our website, thefestivalofstorytellers.com. Luthie as well has a very interesting game in her website, and I'm encouraging everybody to check it out because you will really need time. It's cryptic, it's interesting, it's fun, and it's at littlecabbageheadsbooks.com. And so you might have a headway if you go there right now and check it out. Also, you can check it on ReadersMagnet.com, social media platforms, and all that. Before anything else, the Festival of Storytellers is really not just about the story, it's the story behind the story. It's about the story of the storytellers themselves. And so I'd like to start with some of the, how do I put this, house rules before we begin, before we start the excitement. For all the audiences right there, we're encouraging everybody to share your questions, ask away, and Luthie will be answering it for us. You can send your greetings as well. Please make sure you do get to reach her. It's going to be a very interesting segment that we will have. And so to kick things off, Luthie, very interesting story, and we're going to put some suspense around how interesting that story is. Before anything, we would like to know the story behind the story, which is the storyteller herself. And so would you mind sharing to us where the love of writing and storytelling began?
Well, if you had listened to my grandmother or my mother when they were alive, they would have told you I was born with a ham gene. But when I was 4 years old, my mother sat us girls down and she read a story to us about a rabbit, and it was a story that she had written herself. And I remember that, and I don't remember the story. I remember just, that much of it, that it was a rabbit, but that she wrote it. And okay, so that kind of stuck with me, but and I was sort of a little actress. I would coerce my sisters into putting on little skits for my parents. And we would, do that in front of the TV set, with the TV set off, thank God. And so at different times, I wrote down different stories that I had, but often my love was for the stage. And then I would find myself in a group setting. Sometimes it was the actors after a theater performance and stuff. Sometimes at the end of the performance, there would be the crew or the stage crew, and the actors would all have a party, And oftentimes I would just start talking this story and have everybody suddenly stop whatever they're doing and listen to a story. And then I would be just telling these stories off the top of my head. When I was 11, 5th grade, I wrote a story. And today I have to laugh because it was badly written. It was a Deus Ex Machina thing, but I was 11, so that's fair. And but it was well received. When my parents read it, when my teachers read it, when the kids read it, then it was like, oh wow, this is a fantastic story. It was a time travel story, and like my character went back in time and there were dinosaurs around, and they were safe as long as they didn't leave the path. But I didn't have a nice ending or a climax or anything. I just did like I said, Deus Ex Machina. Oh, and she suddenly woke up from this dream. So if I read it today, I would say, oh my gosh, how could they like this? But they did, and it was encouraging. Well, I didn't often put too much of my story writing from that time. At the age of 14 was the first time I was in theater on the stage, and it was local theater. Then I got a little bit older, and when I was doing writing older, and I was writing up stories of make-believe or magic or things like that, then I had well-meaning people tell me how, well, if you write a story that's like this, that's fiction. Some people thought fiction was a lie, and it was like, well, yeah, it's fiction, but it isn't, like that. And others would say things like, well, when you write a villain, you have to think evil thoughts. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, all I have, but I was a good kid, and what I wanted to be was a good kid, right? So anytime I wrote anything, I just like shoved it in the drawer, like I used to do my music that I wrote, shoved it in the sock drawer and went and did dishes or something else that made me feel like, I was being progressive. And for 36 years, did nothing with my stories. So I have a stack of them, unfinished, but I have a stack of them. And then suddenly I kind of dropped all those paradigms in about 2006. And then I started joining NaNoWriMo, which is November's National Novel Writing Month. And I started creating stories again. So, and this time I decided they're going in writing so I can share them with a bigger audience. And that's me. And, and I've been like a jack of all trades. I've done everything but from singing in a tavern to teaching English to being a kennel person to, oh my gosh,
No, but absolutely, Luthie. I'm just gonna say, someone from Ireland wants to tell you something, that she's been checking a lot of the authors that had been on, and apparently that person finds you one of the most interesting and fun, and wants to give you big love. And so, yes, absolutely.
Ireland, right?
Yep. It's an interesting story, Luthie, but one of the things that I got from there, what inspired you to write, is not necessarily just about the story, right? It's about your grandma and your mom telling you those stories. And I'm thinking it is not just the story, it's that moment that made it special and stuck to you through the years and made you want to share your stories. And I'm starting to think you do this writing and sharing your stories for the same purpose, if I'm not too presumptuous.
Well, yeah, my purpose has everything to do with the reader. My purpose for writing has to do with, one, giving them a moment of pleasure, a moment of happiness, a moment of away from whatever bothers them today, so that they can look at somebody else's problems or immerse themselves in a totally different world. And the other thing is to stir imagination and the ability to envision, because when they have imagination and creatively can envision things, then they can apply those things today. They can imagine their future. They can visualize where a particular job or a particular sale or a particular solution to a problem will be. And I remember reading, and I don't know his exact words right now because I didn't memorize it, but one of the things that Elon Musk said was, Elon Musk, he goes to space, dudes, and he's a genius. And one thing that he said is that he always enjoyed reading fantasy and his superheroes and stuff, because they would go out to save the world. And this was kind of the thing that he would like to do. He wanted to do things that helped humanity, that helped people. And that's it. And there's also, when I write for children, the idea of hearing the mother's voice, reading with the child, and knowing that a bonding is occurring. This is really close to home. And guys, I want to mention Mariana put a post here. She said Michael, and
yes.
if that is Michael O'Connor, if that is my fan, yes, Michael O'Connor. Mm-hmm. Michael, I have something to say to you specifically, because I offered you a copy of my book because you put up with something this morning that
somebody got lucky earlier this morning.
Somebody got lucky early, and let me tell you,
O'Connor.
Yeah, but he says this. He's from Dublin, and I don't think you could get it to me. And I realized something. Michael, if I can send to Cornwall, England, which I have a couple of my books sent from here to Cornwall, England, as a gift, it will pass through customs without straining you. So if you want a copy, a signed paperback copy of my book, please go back to my booth, go down to the bottom, send me a message that gives me, well, right now, all I really need to know is it's Michael O'Connor, and you promised me a book. just say that so that I can have your email address, and I will get in touch with you, and we'll figure out the details.
I'm
Do
very
that.
excited. I'm very excited for Michael Luthie. Although I'm not going to push my luck and say I wish I could get a signed copy of the book myself, but I'm
Maybe.
gonna I'm gonna segue to Dodge because I feel like he's been holding off some questions himself.
Yeah,
You,
I
Um,
noticed he was like, come on, come on, come on.
yeah,
It's
yes.
just like over here.
The giggles. I know, I know. So I'd like to transcend. I know that's from your 4-year-old when your mom was reading to you about the story about the rabbit that she wrote, which is very interesting. I think that really was the transcendence of you becoming a writer and a storyteller that you are today, and you have been amazing at that. Now, upon checking on the rest of your books, I know you've written Cat Soup, which is really for kids. You have Tic Tac, you have The Bully Frog, and Lila's Magic Brush.
Yeah,
To me,
Layla's Magic Brush. Yeah.
these books were for really, really young kids. And for some reason, the most recent one that you have, which is The Spirit Dancer, was the facade seems to be for kids, but it's also for kids at heart, like myself, you know? So where's the paradigm there? What happened? Like what suddenly changed?
Well, nothing suddenly changed. I wrote the four. Well, first of all, like I said, I got into positions where I told stories. And when I tell my stories, they are always childlike, even when they have elements in them that, you wouldn't be telling to a child. When I was playing the online role-playing game Neverwinter Nights, I had a character who told stories, but I knew that everyone on that server had to be at least 13 years of age or older. That was the rule of the server. So when I told my stories there, I did not worry about their age. And I don't get into graphic stuff anyway. But my love had always been, and the stories that I'd always written had been either for, middle grades or mostly for the young adult. And I like young adult fantasy. And the stories that I started writing, most of the time, they were just too long to be short stories. And so I'm looking, I'm saying, okay, so I've got this novel or novelette that is at a young adult level.
Yeah.
But it takes time to write. So when I needed to learn marketing, I said, what can I do? I want to have a book finished to do that. And I already had these stories. I just had to change them around, all except for Layla's Magic Brush. I made that up individually for children. The other 3 were these stories that I changed so that they were suitable for children. And I published, and I had I'm an accomplished artist, but with 18 to 25 illustrations per book, I would still be working on them if I didn't hire somebody else to do the illustrations. So I was able to publish all 4 of them at various times throughout the year 2017 so that I could learn marketing, basically.
And I saw some of the illustrations, and I think those were ones that you have made, Luthie. I'm sorry, Dash. I know you've been enjoying Luthie's answer, right? But one of the things that I was fairly interested on, because you were talking about the shift, right, from something that I would have been reading when I was 5 or 6 into something that comes a little more serious, right? And I'd like to say something that's a little, how do I put this? Heavy, but at the same time light, and balancing that, Luthie, can be a little challenging, I imagine, right? When you're thinking about making sure that these would translate to, the message would resonate to kids, but at the same time your creative writing would also come out of play. So how do you balance that out?
Well, when I'm talking about what I do with children, I have been a teacher. My first teaching position was in Santa Ana, California, for a private school, and I taught at the elementary school level. I had a mixed classroom from second through second and third grade. And then when the school moved, I got a class that included the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades. So I started at elementary school level with them. And then later when I went to the public schools, I taught high school. I taught high school English. So shifting from one to the other, you have to shift because the little guys can't sit still for 50 minutes. So you have to keep up and keep changing lots of stuff. Then when you get up to the high school level, you can say, okay, now let's draw a focus. Let's be here on this subject right now, and let's push this around for the 50 minutes that you have to sit here with me, and later, due to some bureaucracy, I decided to quit teaching full time, and I became a substitute teacher. And that was the fun game, because everybody wants to fool the substitute teacher. They want to pull some trick. There's always somebody in some class. And Robert's smiling because he was probably that kid. And they do things like switch chairs and stuff. We got a new substitute come in. They don't know who's who, right? We're all gonna, fool her. And I won the game almost invariably because I had my own tricks. And when I'm writing for the children, when I switched to writing for the children, then I just switched to the mentality for the first classes that I was in. Who am I talking to? How would I read to my own children when they were this age? And I tell you something, anybody out there who is a parent, please, 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 always read to your children, especially if you are a new parent and you've got a baby in the crib. Do not underestimate the sound of your voice reading and the visualization of having a book in your arm when that baby's with you. My children were reading at the age of 2. And yeah. Children are sponges. They will absorb these skills and ability. Please help them out. Read. Now here I am. I'm going to say read really good stuff to them. Not my books, but anyway. No, they will enjoy it.
The silver lining here, Luthie, is I'm going to ask my mom after the session, if she did read some books to me when I was like a baby.
Okay, ask her that.
Yeah. I definitely will ask her. So I really am so curious about the book, the spirit, and being part of the operations. It gives me like a forecast of how it's going to perform in the publishing world. I can't wait that the traditional publishing companies would get a chance to grab a copy and get your book discovered, because this is a movie fit book. And that's what I like about it. I'm now imagining that there has to be like a book trailer for this one, and a lot of magazines should be able to get in touch with you and probably support a page for you and your book, because I'm imagining that there's going to be like a next big thing out there. There's going to be the next Lord of the Rings Avatar out there, because I haven't read the full book, but I know based on our conversation and the trailers that I've seen on YouTube, available information and articles online about you and your book, it's very intriguing and interesting. And the fact that we spoke about some languages that you've incorporated in the book to make it so enticing and personalized, really, it gives me some goosebumps, and I can't wait the next time Luthie is the next big thing.
Oh, good. Thank you. That's an aspiration that I almost couldn't hope to dream of. It's still there. I'm not giving it up, but almost.
Hang in there.
It's just there. Because I see the action. I get into the character. I feel each character when I write. I love my characters. And a little bit about the, if you don't mind my saying a little bit before you ask, about the writing process that I have. And I was just listening to, I think it was Carolyn Rice this morning. Yes, and she was talking about her process, and she comes with plot first. She says, "How do I I tell this and bring it to the children, and how she does there. So she starts with plot. I'm character driven. I think of somebody with some kind of a personality, some kind of a something, and throw them into a situation. And when they're thrown into this situation, I say, oh, okay, what would this character do? And at first, it's just writing just different stuff. And then pretty soon, the character comes alive and starts taking me on the story. And sometimes it gets carried away, and it's a little more than I can handle. And I said, wait a second, this story has to go somewhere. But once in a while, I feel like I'm along for the ride. And I love when that happens, because then the writing just flows really fast. Now, this is rough draft writing, folks. I still have to revise, and I still have to edit, so that it's very refined.
Correct me if I'm wrong. With the book Spirit Dancer, I'd like to believe that the name of the kingdom or the world that the characters live in is Ayasgal. Did I say it right?
Ayasgal, yep.
Ayasgal.
Ayasgal, Yasegald.
Yasegald, okay.
Yasegald. Okay. Anybody here who knows Spanish, Japanese, well, a lot of foreign languages, understand that in those languages, the 5 vowels, A, E, I, O, U, have one sound each. ¿Es verdad? A, E, A, O, U.
Yep.
If it's Japanese, it's A, E, I, O, U. If it's Spanish, A, E, I, O, U. If it's Rekinder, guess what it is? Come on. What is it?
Yeah.
A, E, I, O, U.
Okay.
A is A, E is A. Okay, so it's I, A, Se, Gald. Yasegald.
Yasegald.
Yasegald. Yes, that's the world. That's the name of the world.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be more interesting if maybe Luthie can just give us a brief description of Yasegald, so that we can, bring everybody with us and take us in that journey to Yasegald.
You mean a bit of a tour, you mean, Dodge, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, okay, little bit of a tour. Yasegald is it's a little bit incomplete right now, because I have other books to write. The Spirit Dancer has 2 places in the Yasegald, and one is a memory, because Kalias comes from his place in Barisi, the land of Barisi, in an area, in a town called Rock's Crest, in an area called the Glimmer Barrens. And the Glimmer Barrens come right up to the coastline. So it's really a coastal village, but it's like a desert out behind it. And it goes very far inland. And this is where he is from. So they don't have a whole lot of water. They grow what they can, and they don't have a whole lot, and they depend a lot on the sea. Well, when a raid happens on the village, and his sister and several other women are taken, he jumps into a fishing skiff, because that's what they have. They don't have large boats. They have small dinghies and fishing skiffs. He jumps into a fishing skiff, and he takes off after this long ship. There's no way this fishing skiff is going to catch a long ship. It's just not going to keep up. Yeah. And so the first chapter opens up. It does have a prologue. Not telling you about that. But the first chapter, I love doing that. The first teasers, anywhere I can put a teaser. The first chapter opens up with this skiff crashing in on the shores of Marisco. And this is Marisco. Let me see if I got it where. And this is where his skiff lands. And this is the island. say here, and it looks a little bit like a slingshot up here, but you kind of get more of that in the next couple of books. All right, so it's got this mountain range that goes right down through the center of it here. Whoops, wait a second there, and then it has this little point of the Gald, this is called, and all of these things, and this part of it here, especially with the cities here, and over here is Durgren Star. These areas play a large part in the story. This area over here, where he walks along the beach, Crispin Point, and that, this is where he comes through, and he comes across the mountains here before he can get to civilization. There's no civilization on that other side. So there are various beasts, what I call near beasts. The curved plick and the wixen are near beasts, and their purpose. Well, you don't get to meet the wixen. Well, the wixen are quite a far north of where Callias is, and is going to be where the body of the story is. But the curved plick is like this huge, humongous ogre type creature that loves to pick things up and crush living things with it, whether it's a tree trunk or a big boulder or whatever. They do that, and that's their forte. So he has to survive this, and he meets Diala. Now, as soon as he's crashed on the shoreline, it turns out that when this raid occurred, the blade dancers of his land, and he is a blade dancer, were getting prepared for their annual festival, and they were dressed in all their regalia. They had their swords and their cuirasses on and stuff like that. They do this dance of the blades. Well, the reason they have blade dancers was because there was a war 100 years before that. So Callias, though he is a very skilled swordsman, has never killed anybody. He's never really fought anybody seriously until this raid occurred, and then, of course, found himself very inadequate because, people are dying all around him and, being shot and stuff, because there was this strange weapon that these raiders had that they had no idea about. They had never seen or heard before. So in this world here, when he crashes here, he's got all this new stuff, and he has lost out on his sister, and he's looking for her. And then he to calm himself, he does his dance of the blade, and he meets Diala because she sees him on the beach, and she shifts down into her surl cat form, which is kind of like a snow leopard, only the spots are different, a little bit of markings and stuff are different like that. And he knows that there's somebody watching him, and eventually they meet, and there's this point at which he's afraid that she's going to attack him, and stuff. But so they have this rocky beginning, but she takes him, becomes his spirit guide, basically, and she takes him across here to what is called Sungtao Shores, and he meets Gwyn. Gwyn, turns out that Gwyn is a Bloodfish Navy mystic, and it's the Bloodfish Navy that pulled the raid on his village, okay? But he's gained respect for this guy, and the guy is sort of an outcast. He's kind of an ex-Bloodfish Navy man, and so he agrees to help him. And of course, though, he is the mortal enemy of the Rekindor, and the Rekindor is what Diala is. And because she has been Callias's guide, he calls her Spirit Dancer. So that is actually her name at first, until he learns her real name later. But there you go. They go down the coast, and they end up staying down here at the point of the world where they and several of the ladies that they've rescued, not his sister, but several of the other ladies, and he trains them to be an army. And then they sail up to Durgwin. They build a boat, sail up to Durgwin Star to go rescue Asadia. So I've given away quite a bit about the book, but that's the world too. And the world is, like I said, I'm character heavy. The world is kind of, where would we be if we were in a different world? Who would we be? We would have different things to deal with, right? So sometimes our setting and our surroundings are also a part of us, and we are a part of it.
Absolutely. No, I like that last line about we are part of our surroundings. And I'm gonna just segue really quick, Luthie. We've had a couple of questions from our audience. Yeah, so I'm gonna read the first one. So the first question is: are you writing Spirit Dancer Book 2? And I think you've shared earlier, right? It's coming along. But I think the more interesting question here is: I love the language that you created, and I think it's Rikinder. The question is like, how do you come up with such beautiful language, which we will ask you to speak a few lines of later, Luthie. But first off, how do you imagine some new language? How do you create that? What inspires you, and how do you even construct it, or think how to start?
Okay, let me think a little bit, because it really is an evolution. Really an evolution, and I'm still working on it, because the first book does not have all the words in it that I've created. Sort of an answer also about writing Spirit Dancer Book 2. Books 2 and 3 have been started, but I have another book that I am writing called Like an Owl in Moonlight that has nothing to do with the Spirit Dancer series or world. And I started that in 2007. I want that book done. So I'm doing that this year, and I hope to have that one published by December. I might not make it, but that's the goal. So back to the language. I thought about having Diala speak a different language because I've loved languages for a long time. And I have made up words and things like that frequently. But in this case, I decided that the Rikinder, the human, is called Kinir, Kinnir, Kinir. The Rikinder is a created, if you think in the world of creation, human beings were created or Kinir were created, and Akin or Akin were created, Akin and Rikinder, which is pronounced Rekinder to the Rikinder themselves. And that means to and basically reconnect the Kinir, to the world of Yasegal. Because the world of the Yasegal felt that the Kinir had separated themselves from nature. And this is, of course, again, something that is more fully explained in book 3, but book 3 isn't made yet, and I know everybody's going about it, but you've got it. Okay.
She just spilled the beans, though. She just spilled the beans. There's book 2 and book 3.
It'll get there. Enjoy my other books too, please. So when like an Owl in the Moonlight comes out, you'll enjoy that one too, and then you'll say, "Will there be a book 2?" Let's just little things at a time, okay? Baby steps. What I decided was to make, because that was the purpose of the Rikinder, I started with root words that connected to body parts, connected to elements in the world, connected to the nature, trees, the sky, the clouds, the earth, and then I had the fluid openness of the vowels. And then I just built, and what I did was I went, and you can go online, and you can find the 500 most popular words used. So you have look, I have a vocabulary list to find. And said, okay, so the Rekinder, and then I started making up the syntax and making up the exceptions to the rule. I ended up very, very good in English. In the 8th grade, my 8th grade English teacher told the entire class, if you want to get an A in this class, get Luthie to be your tutor.
Wow.
Yeah, you know, but I tell them, I got so good in English by memorizing all the exceptions to all the rules. And so that's how I basically created this language so that I could have these exceptions and I could have these nuances of syntax and verbalization, how they speak in that.
And when you talk about it, Luthie, I know you're putting it into terms that's easy for us to understand the whole process. But the idea of it is so daunting to me that it's one of the things that makes the book exciting. But another part of it, and when you talked about imagination, right? To me, to young kids, imagination is quite important. And it seems to me, I'm reading in between the lines, that the world that we've created is not really entirely that different to the one that we have right now. It's just that we're communicating it differently. And so kids can find something of a role model in the characters that you are making. And I find it resonating in me how the Rekinder, right, or the Kindia, if I'm saying it correctly, right, is about that and how we've been disconnected. So very, very interesting. To me, it's deep. It requires some ponderance, but for kids, I'm sure it's going to be an epic adventure for the teenagers alike. But for the young at heart, it's something to think about.
Before I get into a lot of trouble, that was put somewhere on somebody's list, which you evidently read, Robert, which was only supposed to be notes for maybe the ReadersMagnet. This is not meant to be for teens. It has a couple of scenes in it that are, I mean, it's got a decapitation in it. I mean, it isn't written to be gore, but it does have elements of sexual seduction and innuendo, and it does have elements of that. So we're talking the young new adult. We're talking usually 18 plus, but I'm sure that mature 16 and 17-year-olds will enjoy the book as well. And this is the problem with mentioning teen or mentioning something like that. I don't want to turn into Judy Blume. And I don't know if anybody remembers Judy Blume, what happened. She was one of the first ones I'm a graduate of the Institute of Children's Literature back when it was a correspondence course. Okay, now it's online. There was no such animal when I was a graduate there. But I got her Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing and stuff, and this is a really good reader. And parents would buy this for their young, 8 to 12-year-olds. They would buy these stories for them to read, little chapter books. These were really great. And then she wrote Wifey. And she was leaning upon her name, Judy Blume, the popularity of her name. And parents and grandparents were, without question, just grabbing it off the shelf and giving it to their 8 to 12-year-olds until the parents looked and said, what the heck? And the child would say, what are you telling me to read? Oh, my gosh. Okay, so I don't want to turn into that person.
And I'm glad that you made it clear, Luthie. Now it's starting to become a little bit more graphic and epic at the same time in my mind. And Dodge, I know we're both excited about this. So Luthie, we talked about earlier, right, how we're going to cap our session with lines, one of your beautiful poetic lines in the language that you have created. And by the way, to those listening and tuned in, Luthie's created a whole lexicon for this language, and she's still working on it because I really don't know how to create a new language. It's
super well thought out book.
I know. And so Luthie will grace us with a reading of sorts on the Rekinder language, and I'm very excited. So Luthie, please take it away.
Yes. Here's in chapters 13 and 15. Diala does a lot more of her language than in any other part of the book. And in other parts of the book, we have a character, Rosalana, who often translates some things that she says. But in chapters 13 and 15, she's alone. She has found the skeleton, or they have found the skeleton that turns out to be the skeleton of her sister. So she has got to bury, she's going to have a funeral pyre, and she's got to bury her sister. And wait a minute, I got to get my granny glasses on. It's easier to read when I can see all the words. And no, I don't have my book memorized. Thank you for asking. So some of the things that she says to her sister, who is she says, Sege Allah de Shrives. Wait a minute. Let me give that a different inflection.
Go ahead.
Sege Allah de Shrives, Uene Shrives Awola Hoda. Which means, where is he your protector when you needed protection from him? She also says, Ale dawa mahana, tiiti juzam kinir, shive von gradi mis dos mis juzam, which means my promise to you, Mehana, I'll find the cowardly Kinnear. I'll kill and mutilate that coward. But when she does her prayer, her funeral prayer, she's talking about taking the story of Mahana and her memories so that Mahana can go back to her ancestors and nothing will be lost. That she will do the remembrance for Mahana. And then she says at the end, when she's ready to release her sister, she says, Toloku es Zenodawa, Mahij Rekingald, Awoma Kazonda. And this means grasp hold of your spirit, leave the physical world, from ashes to ultimate freedom.
I don't know, there's something about the language that makes the heavy stuff beautiful and the poetic stuff even more explicit. Luthie, we're so much enjoying this conversation, and I'm sure for all the folks that are tuned in, they have plenty of questions. So I'm just going to say this: please visit booth at the festivalstorytellers.com. You can also visit her website. Luthie, we have come to the point where we leave that epic line.
Okay, there's one more thing. There was, do you teach how to write books?
Yes.
I am creating a course to teach children to write and illustrate their own picture books. But yes, awesome. I do. And I can consider teaching them for older kids, grown-up kids like myself too. So the answer is yes, folks.
And that's very interesting. Something tells me we'll be seeing each other and Dodge more often, if not in those sessions. But Luthie, let's leave our audience with an epic line from Rikindir. It's that time of the day. I'm excited.
Alea mahal sega kawopik hanatol. And I said, I promise to return here for the purpose of gift giving. So let me give you a chance to win a signed paperback copy of Spirit Dancer. And I will be I will be here tomorrow and I have to do this Eastern time, and I'm in Pacific time, 12 noon. Tomorrow is the first session, 12 noon to 1:30. I will be in my booth. I will also be in my booth from 4. Wait a second. I think 4:30 to 6. And both times I will be running games that you can win a copy of my book. I will be doing readings, and I will be talking about writing process.
And if anybody's so interested, Luthie, will you be sharing a little bit of Rikindir too in any of those sessions that you've shared?
Absolutely. Anybody who wants to hear some of that, they can ask. Mostly when I read with the purpose of expressing some portion of the writer process, but people are very interested in the language, so absolutely, I'll just shift right on over to Rikindir.
Thank you. So Luthie, just for everyone, would you mind saying, so you will be live tomorrow Can you share the times again, just so for everybody will be able to tune in?
And it's the Spirit Dancer booth. They had a little problem with a dual booth going on. If you go to a booth and it says at the top that I'm reading, you're in the wrong place. It should say welcome to the Spirit Dancer booth. So that's, when you go to booth, it's booth, /booth /Spirit Dancer. Or you can click on the booths at the navigation menu and type Spirit Dancer in the search. It'll come right to it. And just be sure that you choose the right. Hopefully there'll only be one, and it'll be the right one. And times, 12 noon Eastern and 4:30 Eastern, 2 different times. Okay? And my website, littlecabbageheadbooks.com. Littlecabbageheadbooks, all one word, .com.
Thank you very much, Luthie.
Thank you. And thank you, James, Robert. I had so much fun. This was a really great time. And thank you, all of the listeners and the people who were here. Thank you for sticking it out with us. And good evening to you. Rest well and come back and play tomorrow.
We definitely will. And so I'm going to say goodbye on behalf of Dodge, myself, and Luthie. Thank you so much for indulging us, giving us a tour of the world that you have created. For everyone that's tuned in, let's drop by Luthie's booth. Let's play the game on her website and win some prizes. And I think let's enter the world that she has created, epic, magical, fantastical at the same time. And I'd like to think full of imaginative stories and a sense of inspiration as well. And so to the rest of the world, thank you so much for being with us, Luthie, Dodge. And from everyone here in Readers Magnet and the Festival of Storytellers, we will see you soon. And thank you so much. And you all have a good evening, good morning, or good afternoon, wherever you are.
See you all tomorrow.
Bye for now.
For the rest of the festival. Thank you. Thanks, Luthie.
Bye.